This video is sponsored by you. Links for the channel are in the description. The quote, given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of a game, is a game design principle popularized by Civilization 3 game designer Soren Johnson, stating players will take the path of least resistance, even if it means ruining their own game experience. For example, in the alleged video game Heartbound, there is a puzzle you can entirely skip, despite the fact there is an intended solution for you to go through. This defeats the point of having the puzzle. In a PvP game, you must make sure the players aren't ruining their own experience with toxic or boring strategies, because it does not affect just them but their opponent as well, and even the wider ecosystem of the game. In a grindy MMO, you must make sure the best grinding method is the most fun, lest the players make their playing experience a boring full-time job. So, according to this principle, Arknights should be dead in a ditch by now. Wishadel, Tragodia, Silverash Alter, Ulpianus, Monstre, Haruka, and many others completely trivialize a vast majority of the game. It stands to reason then that every player would pick the strongest units in every stage, and thusly botch the game experience for themselves. However, I am sure the majority of you watching this know that's not what happened. Arknights has dozens of easy mode options that you could argue even skip the gameplay entirely from how strong they are. Yet it does not suffer from it. Wishadel did not change the game in any meaningful way. Arknights is still thriving, and we are getting some of the most interesting and creative 6-star kits we've ever gotten. Each new 6-star has a lot of mechanics for you to sink your teeth into, and plenty of options to get creative. The developers have proven they can handle situations that, on paper, should spell the death of the game. Endfield seems to be in much the same situation, with the combat and the factory. The dodge and the blueprints, on paper, very directly make the game easier and allow you to skip both the strategic depth of combat and the factory management. The reaction from a subset of the community was as you'd expect. Let's talk about that. Also, hi, Arknights Endfield, the most hated YouTuber here. I apologize if there aren't many funnies in this video, for once I am putting my serious cap on. I want to specify this video, while it holds a hopeful outlook, is not saying Endfield is good or will be good. I simply do not have the information to make such a statement. The game is not out yet. We do not know how the game will pan out in 1 or 2 years from release. Anything anyone can possibly argue, negative and positive alike, is a slippery slope argument by default. Let's begin with the dodge discussion. There is a reason I have kept myself out of it until now. For those unaware, let me explain what the dodge drama is. During the technical tests, the game played much closer to something like Xenoblade, and did not feature a dodge button. This made the gameplay slower and more tactical. People got their hands on it, and complained the combat was slow and clunky, and so Hypergriff added a dodge button. This completely short-circuited certain people. They argue adding the dodge is the beginning of the game showing a lack of confidence in what it is, that it is losing its identity, and that it is foregoing artistic integrity for the sake of appealing to the lowest common denominator. Over months and months, the dodge controversy has bred a dissatisfied, toxic, gloomy subset of the community, which, it seems, has now reached the point where they actually just want the game to fail. It cultivated a subsection of people who had a very specific idea of what Endfield should have been, based on the early builds, and are now angry about the direction it has taken in the newer betas, perhaps even feeling robbed and bitter towards who they feel have robbed them. It is a portion of people that is unwilling to engage with Endfield on its own terms and assess it for what it is. Rather, they dismiss it and disregard it for what it is not. There is a fundamental difference between the two. I understand disliking genres. I am entirely allergic to MMOs, for example. But this is not what is happening. It is making swift, all-encompassing judgments on a product before it is even out, or you have even played it. It is dismissing Endfield for being an open-world dodge battler, without asking if it is a good entry in that genre. It is a dismissal of the wide web of systems, which the dodge is part of, that shape the overall game experience, which cannot be gathered from mere gameplay videos. Things like team building, ease of getting the characters, the elemental system, the combo system, the gear system, the weapon system, the control scheme, the UI, and ease of building those characters. Each one of these aspects has its own identity contributing to the whole. As much as people call games like WoWa Genshin clones, they are not, because they differ in these aspects, creating an experience that, while it shares certain core traits, is ultimately different in its game feel and long-term gameplay. And this is just regarding the combat. I am not even mentioning everything else that goes into a gameplay experience, that being the actual design of the open world, the story, the writing, the content in the open world, the music, the graphics, and so on. The simple truth is that none of us have enough information to make any judgment, positive or negative. Saying Endfield is Genshin 3.0 and saying Endfield will be amazing and better than everything else on the market would both be uninformed opinions. Though please don't think of my position as enlightened centrism. I hate people who sit on the fence and shove it up their ass just as much as the next guy. I do believe the game will surpass expectations and be good, but I admit I cannot say that for certain, as it is a conjecture by default, based solely on the trust I have in Hypergriff after witnessing their work for the past 6 years. I've seen people say something akin to, if I wanted Hoyo Slop, I'd go play Hoyo because they do it better, which is kind of crazy, isn't it? You do not know that the game has never been given the chance to prove itself. I do want to point out that there definitely exists an even smaller subsect of people where this is just an ego thing, and they wanted to feel superior to the perceived Hoyo Slop games. The more and more Endfield becomes closer to a mainstream 3D gacha, the less they can parade it around as their unique game that Hoyo could never. This is not a conspiracy. We have seen it before in, for example, the Wuthering Waves community, where a small group of people do not truly care about the inherent qualities of the game. Rather, the game is a vehicle for their elitism and ego. Such a group definitely started to form in the Endfield community as well, especially thanks to all the tribalism that was stirred up at the beginning of the Dodge controversy. However, these people are not nearly important enough, impactful enough, or numerous enough to really get into. I am merely mentioning them for completion. I made a Twitter post about them, and that's all they're gonna get. Had the Dodge controversy never happened, I doubt we would have ever seen so much complaint about the factory blueprints either. A lot of the arguments against and even in favor of the blueprints reach so far out they become street hazards for satellites. They peer into their crystal ball and envision a future in which the factory is left behind or perhaps even deleted, like the ZZZ TV mode, like the mystical boogeyman of the Hoyo your players will ruin the game over time. Such fear is perfectly fair, don't get me wrong, I am not here to invalidate it. I can see where the arguments come from. The current gacha space has itself made people jaded and cynical. We've seen it with Genshin, we've seen it with Wuthering Waves, we've seen it with Stella Sora, we've seen it with GFL2, we've seen it with HSR, and many more. There is solid ground for the doom posting to stand on. However, far too many people parrot it around as prophecy. In reality, we simply do not know. There are slippery slope arguments to be made in favor of the blueprints as well. I could argue that having blueprints actually allows the developers to go even more into the factory management. It gives freedom to get complex with it, without risking alienating the casual player base, who would still have the blueprints to fall back onto. I could argue the base in Arknights has not been abandoned despite how incredibly few people engage with it as evidence of this premonition. But again, who knows? There is one fair criticism of the blueprint system, however, and that is how it affects rewards. Technically speaking, you are rewarded more by copying a popular, efficient community blueprint compared to doing it yourself, which will inevitably be much less efficient compared to a random casual that just copy-pasted from a CN sweatlord. In this environment, you are rewarded for disengaging with the system. Objectively, it's not very good game design in the way it exists right now. Still, even with this truth established, the game is single-player, and you alone shape what your experience looks like. Kind of a related example, Monster Hunter Wilds introduced two new things to the series. A bird that is able to pick you up when you get hit and sent to the ground, and crippling performance issues. While there isn't much to do about the latter, I just refuse to use this fucking bird to pick me up. I think this mechanic sucks, and it removes a lot of the risk from hunts, making an easy game even easier. So, even if on paper I am rewarded more for disengaging with the combat and letting the secret erase my mistakes, I can choose not to, and I am having a more personally satisfying experience for it, even if I am at a disadvantage. Admittedly though, this is kind of a cope. Those features are still bad game design, and they are still in the game, but it is something worth mentioning, that it is not a crippling game issue that will make it impossible for you to enjoy the game, unlike what some people make it sound like. But there is an elephant in the room yet to address. Some people would ask a very simple question. What company would ever make content for something only a small portion of the player base engages with? On paper, it makes no sense. Well, I have your answer. Hypergriff. They have shown repeatedly that they will do that in Arknights across 6 years. They will update SSS, they will update Reclamation Algorithm and are currently working on Reclamation Algorithm 3. They just updated IS2, a 4-year-old mode, and the base still gets pretty regular updates. This is in spite of the utterly minuscule amount of people who actually engage with that content. The same goes for the story. In Arknights, the story is not presented like in a 3D gacha, meaning that you are forced to engage with it as you progress through gameplay. In Arknights, gameplay and the story are separated, and thusly very few people actually read the story. Hypergriff knows this, and despite the fact a very small amount of people engage with it, the story has only been improving over time. Hypergriff has a strong track record of catering to small minorities in their games. So, if there is any company I would consider trusting to keep updating the factory even though there's blueprints, it is the company that keeps improving the story in Arknights despite the skip button and the fact few people actually read it. Hey, SUPAH from the future here. If you think about it, blueprints are kind of wishadel. Bear with me here. Both the factory blueprints and the operator wishadel from Arknights share the same space in the ecosystem of the game. That space apparently being a memetic agent that causes certain people to act in a certain way. That way being something along the lines of caring way too much how other people play a single player game. Be it Arknights players shaming those who use Wishadel, or Endfield not actually players yet shaming people who plan to use blueprints in the future. Mind you, what I am saying now is entirely detached from anything inherent to the blueprints or how they will affect the game. This SUPAH from the future segment is about the social community aspect of it. It seems this subset of people is perplexed as to why someone would ever choose to play Endfield but skip the factory management, equating it to downloading a puzzle game like Portal 2, only to then watch a guide for every puzzle, thusly skipping the appeal of the game. Beyond the fact that someone could be playing Portal 2 just for the story and the character interactions, I should not have to explain why this is a bad comparison. Truth is, for as much as you want it to be, Endfield is not a factory builder. Endfield is an open-world action RPG with factory builder elements. Therefore, there is quite a wide variety of reasons for which someone might want to play Endfield that are not the factory building. They could be the action combat, the characters, the story, the lore, the open world exploration, or even something else I haven't thought of. I've seen people play games just for the photo mode. So, to shame or shun people for not engaging with the factory, I feel is not appropriate behavior, when there are plenty of reasons someone would play the game outside of the factory. Endfield is not like a puzzle game. There is much more outside of the factory. So, am I saying Endfield is good or will be good for certain? No, obviously not. I simply do not have the information to make that judgment call. I am saying that this most recent stream has shown me the Endfield community has a subset of people who are bitter, gloomy, and elitist about losing a perfect version of Endfield they had in their minds, or that they feel was stolen from them. But why do those people feel robbed exactly? Well, it is because of what I explained before. The technical tests were very different. They showed what was essentially an entirely different game, one they deemed unique and special, not falling into the Hoyoverse trap, while still holding up a high standard when it came to animations and graphics. But think about it, could a game like that, only catering to a niche but loyal player base, support the budget required for this level of quality? And that's the crux of it. Endfield needs to succeed. The game is a high-budget, high-end, AA live service game, and therefore, Endfield needs to succeed in a way Arknights never had to, and to sustain its own budget, there have to be sacrifices to be made. It's like a lot of these people expected some sort of perfect world, where Endfield can be both a high-budget, wonderfully made and gorgeous game, while also being a niche little passion project factory builder game, with strategic niche combat gameplay. The two can't truly coexist, unfortunately. And mind you, I'm not defending the new gacha system or the battle pass. The new gacha system is 100% a step back, introducing FOMO which did not exist prior. And the battle pass, while it does pay for itself upon completion, meaning you only need to buy it once if you are diligent with your logins, still leaves a bad taste in my mouth and is an inherently predatory business module due to its nature. Before you even think it, which at this point were like 20 minutes in the video, so you probably thought about it, this video is not a hit piece or subtweet on Toboruo. The guy himself, for as much as he seems to viscerally hate me, has repeatedly proven he has critical thinking skills and is sharing his criticism in good faith. He himself has realized the dodge drama is stupid and doesn't matter. However, it is undeniable the effects those videos have had on a lot of people, due to them, perhaps, being a little unnecessarily and overwhelmingly negative. An Endfield video that does not go over his channel would simply be incomplete. On the China Joy stream reaction video, there was a pinned comment, explaining that Toboruo disabled comments on the video to avoid negativity. It said something along the lines that he saw too much doom and gloom for his taste, and he still wants people to be excited for Endfield like he is. Here is a screenshot of that comment I found on Twitter. I need to use Twitter because this comment is gone, and the title of the video is back to what it was originally. For someone that wants people to be excited about Endfield and doesn't feel comfortable letting the doom and gloom comments spiral out of control and treated this as a learning experience, he sure does seem to like stirring the pot.
Did you know that nothing can ever be bad, ever? Yes, that's right. If you like something, every single decision made by the people that made it must therefore be good. Integrity is elitist, actually. And apparently, talking about your concerns is crashing out. Being critical of something you like is doom posting, and wanting games to be unique and interesting is elitist. Absolutely nothing I say or do short of deleting my channel and killing myself will be good enough for people who think like that. Crash out doom posting elitist here. And if only a tiny fraction of players are engaging with a certain part of the game, why the hell would they invest their resources into building on it and developing it further? But I'm calling it now, once we go elsewhere, it will be dramatically less important with each new region. And then that's all followed up with, the goal is to let more administrators fall in love with what makes this experience special, the joy of building with your own hands. You have allowed your game to be lobotomized by Philistines. People who do not even slightly give a shit about your art. People who will abandon you in droves the moment a shinier distraction appears. But hey, devs listened. That's all that fucking matters, right? Devs listening to the most asinine, illiterate demographic on Earth. The kind of people who will actively try to turn your game into the shit that lazy parents put on an iPad in front of their drooling toddler.
However, do not get me wrong again, I am not attributing this to malice. I understand how this argument can come off. I do not want you to think I am calling Toboruo a grifter farming enragement for clicks. That is demonstrably not the case. I believe what happened is that Toboruo thought that by front-loading the video with positive information and explaining all he liked about the stream first, that would lessen the blow and stop the dooming from spiraling. I wish it worked like that. Making a video like this and directly making fun of the people complaining about doom posting with such a snarky attitude does nothing but achieve the very thing he's said he wishes to avoid, that being the doom spiraling out of control. All that quickfire reactionary videos like these truly achieve is dividing the community even more, while giving the people who are bitter, dissatisfied and toxic and encouragement to continue being that way, and thusly inviting more toxicity from the opposite side as well. No one is innocent. It also makes Toboruo himself look like a grifter, which is a clearly wrong view of the guy. Even if posting this video and then going back to delete the comment about him reflecting on the impact and the consequences of videos like the one he just posted is not a good look. Personally, I also posted some rage bait immediately after the stream, which I have now deleted, as even facetiously, it's not something that should remain up, which is why I am not attributing Toboruo's behavior to malice or grifting, just an incorrect emotional response from someone that got very angry. I was not immune to a reactionary emotional reaction either. And God knows I am very familiar with making mistakes. Still, this warrants pointing out. In the end, I don't know why people are so distrusting of Hypergriff, as if this company has not proven themselves for the past 6.5 years. Yes, companies are not your friend, but I am just looking at the facts here. The base in Arknights was not abandoned. SSS, reclamation algorithm, every other failed mode was not abandoned. The story keeps getting better and better despite the skip button and despite the fact few people actually read it. Despite how much the game changed over the years, its core identity remained. The game has rampant objective power creep, and yet Hypergriff has shown they know how to handle it, and still make the game enjoyable, arguably even thanks to the power creep. If there is one company I could consider trusting when it comes to cooking with Endfield, it is Hypergriff. Even in the new gacha system and battle pass, which I feel everyone can unanimously agree are not great, you can tell Hypergriff is trying to compromise, to find the middle ground between sustaining Endfield's high live service budget and not being too predatory. The gacha system, while making everyone limited, has each operator live for much longer time compared to the competition. The Battle Pass, while inherently predatory due to its nature, pays back for itself on completion. I am not saying the new gacha system and the battle pass are good. I am not saying that the compromise justifies those systems. I am not saying the blueprints are good. I am not even saying the dodge is good. I have not played the game. I don't know. I am saying that Hypergriff has proven itself for 6 years, and even now you can tell they are trying to compromise. So, personally, I am willing to let them cook. In the end, I am hopeful, but that's just me. Maybe I am just too hopeful or naive. God knows I watched TTGL too many times. Maybe I'll be eating my words a year from now. That's all. Max out your Last Rite. Bye. Hey, hi, welcome to the outro. Isn't that quirky, SUPAH being serious for once? Anyway, I've seen way too much toxicity around this, and I hate that the person that clearly has reflected on the impact of their videos still goes out and does it anyway, breeding more toxicity. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and a special thank you to Nemo, Tony, Mirak, Hiorei, URL Killer, Edu, Larimar, Kino, Kami I Love Wishadel, Bomb Ninja, Kudo Leon, Living Shad, Apollo T, QX10, Mr. Lair, Tatanimal Raptor, Seishin, Joseph D, Zefferinix, Nupo, Lizard King, Nemotic, Nerdrage, Andre Mula, Quill the Catman, Sorin, Chris Hom, Jossess, Come On Here, and Kevin McGuire, Larmendra, Shimali, Unyunuk, Givune the King of Harems, the Guy with Two Names, Light Nero, Chromochan but JJF, and Bozidar. I understand wanting to voice concerns, right? That is everyone's God-given right, but as he himself said, there should be care put into the presentation. There is a difference between explaining your concerns for the future of the game and calling people illiterate. You know, that does nothing but breed tribalism, infighting and toxicity, as we can see in the comment section of that video.